Hello, friends. Tiger Coward here. Today, my three amigos and I began a short 4-day moto-camping tour with the intent of seeing the colors of upstate New York. We are heading to the Adirondack Mountains and will visit places like Cranberry Lake, Saranac Lake, and Lake Placid. Muzzy was at my place by 8:30 this morning, and it was a fresh 9 degrees as we left. We enjoyed the fall colors on our local roads before hitting the slab to our first stop, the Niagara Gateway Center in Grimsby. We were pleasantly surprised by the ride through the best half of the Golden Horseshoe. This was likely the smoothest ride we've ever had through the GTA and on the QEW. Allowing motorcycles to ride in the diamond lanes has changed the journey on big highways in Ontario. In Grimsby, WT met us and we were soon crossing the border into the States. We crossed at the Queenston-Lewiston Bridge and it was a bright, sunshiny 20 degrees. For this trip, we decided to take New York State Highway 104. This route runs the width of the state and is billed as a beautiful country drive. It wasn't. It was completely boring, but the traffic was light and we saw some early fall colors. To spice up the ride, we headed north to Breeze Point to meet the National Scenic Byway. In this part of New York, the road is neither scenic nor a byway. In the early evening, we reached our destination, the Oneida Shores Campground. There, Spike was waiting for us. He'd ridden down from Montreal and arrived at a near-empty campground an hour before us. This morning, we woke up to bright sunshine on the shores of Lake Oneida. Lighting a fire took the chill off the morning, as did a good cup of tea. Shortly after, we packed up and headed to Denny's in North Syracuse for our Grand Slam breakfast. Eventually, we reached the aptly named Forest Port and felt that we had finally reached the autumnal riding bliss that we were craving. In metropolitan Forest Port, we passed the world-famous Wigwam Tavern with an airplane fuselage on the roof of the building. There's a great story behind this strange landmark. You should Google it. For the remainder of the day, we had nothing but beautiful riding on great roads with brilliant fall colors and magnificent summer-like conditions. Reaching the charming village of Old Forge, we ran into our first and only bout of traffic. Old Forge is the western gateway to the Adirondack Park, and this Saturday afternoon was the temporary home of hundreds of people who were flocking to the area to soak in the beauty. We skirted the traffic by taking the South Shore Road, which delivered us to the village of Inlet, and back onto Highway 28. This is a better route and should be logged into your GPS even if there isn't a traffic jam. Let me know in the comments what are your favorite Adirondack back roads and tips for circumnavigating touristy congestion. Blissfully, we traveled through forests, past lakes, and over mountains on Highway 28 until we reached Blue Mountain Lake, and there we stopped for a break on its shores. We continued north to Long Lake and then headed east to Paradox. It seems like a contradiction to call this place Paradox, but whatever. goal was to tour the outside of Fort Ticonderoga. This was an attraction that WT has longed to visit, and it seemed like a great venue to spend some time on a warm October afternoon. Unfortunately, the park that surrounds the fort blocks all of its views. When we reached the admission gate, we learned that the entrance fee was $27 and that the attraction would be closing in a little over an hour. We passed on that and headed north to our campground. The ride north on Shore Airport and Adirondack Park roads along the western banks of Lake Champlain was fantastic. We joined Highway 9N and cruised the pretty lakeside town of Port Henry. From there, we jumped on Interstate 87, and it too was beautiful. It was a long and beautiful day with 425 kilometers of brilliant scenery. We were very happy to land at the Ausable Chasm campground, which will be our home for the next 2 sleeps. The morning started early as we said goodbye to Muzzy, who was starting his long trek home so that he could go to work on Monday. At 8 o'clock, WT, Spike, and I headed to Cozy Corners Restaurant. This is an unpretentious local cafe that serves straight-up eggs and bacon for breakfast. Afterwards, we took winding back roads from Ausable Forks to Potsdam. This was an amazing route with brilliant colors and stunningly beautiful weather. We rode on cool, curvy roads through pine trees and brightly colored deciduous forests. Eventually, we ended up riding on the Silver Lake Road. We reached the Kent Hopkinton Turnpike. This road is an absolute gem. It twists and turns through the woodlands and takes you around lakes and ponds. The tight curves and rolling hills are made even more challenging by the accumulation of sand in the corners. There was more than once that we were surprised at our loss of traction. This may be the best motorcycle road in upstate New York. You should definitely pencil this road into your route plan for the Adirondacks. The weather was perfect as we weaved our way through the backwoods of Upper New York State. We passed the iconic Red Tavern Hotel and the picturesque village of St. Regis Falls before reaching Potsdam. In Potsdam, we met WT's friend Alec, who was riding a 1969 Triumph Bonneville 650. We grabbed a cup of tea on the main street of this pretty little college town and then headed straight south for some awesome riding. Highway 56 running south from Potsdam is a beautiful road to ride. However, on a day like today, it seemed almost mundane and ranked as one of the least interesting roads of the day. That should give you a sense of how great the riding was today. We headed south to Cranberry Lake, which is as beautiful as it was when I last visited here as a teenager. In the spring, I made a video of my trip to the Outer Banks of North Carolina, in which I complained bitterly that it had changed too much. But that is not the case here, not in the Adirondacks. As I was standing here today on the town dock in Cranberry Lake, I could see the same views and it evoked the same emotions as my visit here as a teenager in the early 1980s. From Cranberry Lake, we headed on to the town of Russell via the Tully Pond Road, and it was fantastic. We wound through great twisties and even some gravel along the way. Alec and his 1969 Bonnie were epic warriors today. On days like today, and roads like this, distractions come easy. This road was full of beautiful scenery, epic colors, and autumn weather like we haven't seen for years. At Russell, Alec headed north, home to Smith Falls, and we toured through Tupper Lake and Saranac Lake on our way back to the campground. We stopped in Tupper Lake to pick up hot dogs and other goodies for the campfire tonight, and then headed on to Saranac Lake, where we were blown away by the beauty of this town. I wouldn't have been surprised if someone told me that the town wasn't real and that it was a set for a Hollywood movie. I thought it was terrific, and I need to come back and stay here for a day or two. Eventually, we happily reached our campsite at around 7 o'clock. The ride was just over 500 kilometers, but it was so beautiful that the distance was imperceptible. What an absolutely amazing day. The evening is just going to be hot dogs at the fire and early to bed. Tomorrow we're heading up Whiteface Mountain. After crossing the Ausable Chasm for the last time, we had our third and final breakfast at the Pleasant Corner restaurant, and then headed straight to Whiteface Mountain. The ride to the mountain was fantastic, and we basked in the sunshine while being dazzled by the colors of autumn. We arrived early in an attempt to beat the crowds. Unfortunately, we pulled in right behind the first tour bus of the day. Luckily, the friendly bus driver reached out his window and waved us on in front of him. Climbing the mountain on two wheels gave us some nice views on the big sweeping curves. At the end of the road, we parked and prepared to summit the mountain. I make it sound like we're going up Mount Everest. However, this is a tourist venue and there are stairs to the summit, or you can even take the elevator. That's right, an elevator in the mountain. Only in America, eh? It was cold and windy at the top, as you would expect at the summit of a mountain. So I decided to leave my full gear on, including my down jacket that I bought in Bay Como on last year's trip. The views from the top were absolutely fantastic. We worked up a bit of sweat when we were climbing the stairs, and I wish I hadn't worn my down jacket. After having a nice scenic visit at the top and taking the requisite photographs, we headed back down to the bikes. The ride down the mountain was much more spectacular than the ride up because you get much better views. From the village of Wilmington, which is at the bottom of Whiteface Mountain, we took the beautiful and scenic Highway 86 to Lake Placid. Lake Placid, the town, is one of my favorite places in the world. I've been here many times with my family in my childhood and teenage years, but I haven't been here for a long time. Fortunately, like the rest of the Adirondacks, it is just as beautiful as it was 40 years ago. We rode the length of the town and then turned and came back and parked our bikes at the public parking. The paid parking is cheap, and most importantly, as a middle-aged biker, there are public toilets in the parking lots. Then we strolled the charming main street before grabbing a cup of tea and a bagel, which we ate in a park overlooking the lake. Finally, it was time to go our separate ways. Spike had the shortest ride, being just a few hours from Montreal, and WT had the longest ride, heading back to Waterloo. I was halfway in between because I was heading north to Kentville to visit my amazing friends Al and Karen. I left Lake Placid and rode through Saranac Lake again. I thought that it was pretty yesterday, but today, in the brilliant sunshine, it was even more spectacular. I continued on and rode through the Adirondacks on my way to Ogdensburg, New York, to cross the bridge into Canada. A little bit of jogging around in this cute little town got me to the entrance for the International Bridge. This bridge has a metal grate deck and was terrifying to ride on. Nevertheless, the crossing was brilliant because there wasn't a single vehicle ahead of me. I passed through the border in less than 90 seconds. Then I jetted up Highway 416 to Kentville. As luck would have it, Al was pulling off the highway right in front of me. He gave me a wave and then led me on the 5-minute jaunt to his house. Meeting Al like this was just another sign of how perfect this trip was. Tomorrow, I'll head west on the Monk Road across South Central Ontario towards my final destination in the South Georgian Bay area. I started my journey in Kentville and the weather was just perfect, a bright and sunny 16 degrees. That's the perfect riding weather if you ask me. My first point of interest was the charming Burritts Rapids, and folks, it's impossible to describe how cute this place is. The colors were so dazzling that I found myself struggling to keep my eyes on the road. Mother Nature is really showing off today. I continued north and west, and after a quick pit stop at the Bogey General Store, I discovered a road that left me wondering, why haven't I been on this before? I'm talking about the magnificent Centennial Lake Road, and let me tell you, it might just be the best road in Ontario. I'd rate it a fantastic 10 out of 10. The twists, the turns, the scenic views. It was a motorcycling paradise. If you haven't experienced Centennial Lake Road yet, add it to your ride list. You won't be disappointed. Now hunger struck, and I made a quick meal stop in Bancroft for a sandwich at Subway. Sometimes you just need some quick fuel for the road. From there, I rode straight through to Brewster's Lake, and let me tell you, it's hard to believe that we're in October and temperatures are topping 30 degrees. No complaints from me though. It made the ride even more memorable. If you enjoyed coming along on this journey with me, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more adventures. I love you all. Good night from the center of the universe. Go forth with an open mind and most importantly an open heart. And remember, self-care is not selfish.